All right, welcome everybody who's interested in Lighthouse membership here at Lighthouse Church. If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, my name is Josh, and I'm the senior pastor here at the church, man. And just really excited that you're interested in becoming a covenant member of our community and helping us live the mission that we have, which is to live the Jesus life, to know what Jesus taught, do what Jesus did, and become the people, the community that Jesus made us to be. And one of the big steps in becoming a member is this idea that you're not just jumping into something, you're jumping into a family, you're jumping into a community, and you're taking those three values that we have of know, do, become more serious than you otherwise would if you were just attending. And so I'm just really glad that you're watching these videos. And so if you have had the chance, if you may be on the website, you'll see that there's an ability for you to download the class materials, and you can utilize that via an iPad or print it out if you'd like to become a member, kind of working through all the curriculum. That's what I'm going to be working through in our packet. And so for this first video, we're going to be discussing just kind of an overview of where we're headed for the three classes, and then we're going to get into part one. And so there's, obviously the entire objective of this series is to help you get a fuller understanding of who we are as a church, what we believe as a church, and then why we believe that membership and becoming a part of what we call our committed. We have concentric circles of our church. We have a crowd, which is the regular attenders of our church. We have our committed, which are our committed, covenanted members of Lighthouse. And then from there, we have our core, which is our elders, our staff, and then also our deacon ministry, amongst many other things like coaches and formational leaders and things like that. And so this is your next step into becoming a part of our group of committed. So overall, we're looking at, you can see this in the course description, objectives on the overview page of the curriculum. The entirety of the membership course is designed to help people who call Lighthouse Church their home, who have already invested in a specific way to become more deeply committed to the church body. 3 parts to the entire class. And the goal is that, you become a member and you see what it's like, and you find so much joy in what it looks like to be a member. And so today, in this video, part 1, we're talking about who we are. We're going to overview the story of Lighthouse Church, the vision, mission, and application of who we are as a church, some of our leadership structure, how we function as a church, and then the different ministries we have at Lighthouse. And so let's just kind of move down to part 1. One of the things that almost everybody always asks us is, how did Lighthouse begin? How does it exist, right? And just as a very simple answer to that question, so Lighthouse Church started in 2015. My wife and I planted the church with a bunch of college students. There were 12 of us. We were meeting in our home, and over the course of the last many years, depending on when you're watching this, we've grown from, our home to we ended up moving into a warehouse. And so there are a group of people at Lighthouse Church that may tell you I was there at the warehouse days. And from the warehouse, we ended up moving into a building. We went to Green Mountain High School, and there are some people that will say, I was there in the high school days, man. And that would be that they were probably there in the first couple years of the existence of our church. We then had the privilege of being able to move into First Presbyterian Church of Lakewood, which closed their doors, sadly, on Easter Sunday, 2018. But as a church, we were able to move into their facility for a couple years, and we grew in that season. When we were in that building, it wasn't ours. We didn't own it. But we were able to discover a little bit more of who we were as a church. We fell in love with the values of a multi-ethnic expression of the church, to being a church that has a large Latino population in our church, a large African-American population, Black population in our church, a church that cares for those who are often forgotten about in the church, which are the ostracized, the poor, the widows, the orphans. And in that building, we found a little bit of who we were as a church, our identity. I grew up as a preacher in that building. And so we were in First Pres, is what we called it, off 10th and Carr, for a couple years. And then after that, we ended up merging with the church, Garden Park Church. Garden Park Church was this phenomenal community of believers that were off Federal. And they gifted us their buildings, they gifted us their assets. They asked for us to have a heart for church planting and campusing. And through a series of really unique, beautiful, hard events, we merged with them. But we found that we were not able to fully commit to planting where they were. They had a building about 4.5, 5 miles away from us, and we just weren't in a position to be able to do that. And so with their blessing, we were able to sell their buildings to a nonprofit that does a food bank, among many other things. We were also able to sell the church building to a church, an amazing church that preaches the gospel, and there was a house on site. And with the proceeds of those buildings, we were able to move into the location that we are currently at, which is our 5555 West Evans building. And from this building, which is really funny, where I'm filming today, this building in the 1980s was a hockey rink. Then it became a soccer facility, and now it's Lighthouse Church. And every day we're trying to make it more beautiful, more hospitable, more open for this neighborhood. This neighborhood is so forgotten. This corner of Southwest Denver has been so often not seen by the city and by the people and by so many. It's been forgotten. And so a part of our story at Lighthouse Church is the reason why we're called Lighthouse Church is for a long time. We kind of had this vision of a church as being a light, like a beacon of light to the broken world of Denver. And since then, our vision has changed a little bit. We've become more clarified in being a church that cares about living like Jesus, being a formational church, practicing the way of Jesus. But our goal has always ultimately been wherever we are, we want to permeate it with the goodness of the kingdom of God and the message of Jesus Christ. And so it's been years since we first planted Lighthouse. But we went from 12 people to where we are today. You know, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that you see every single Sunday call Lighthouse Church their home. And I've been privileged with being able to be the lead pastor, now the senior pastor, and just amazing privilege of having a wonderful staff and a team with us. And God's been so merciful to us. We are healthy. We are financially stable. We reach lost people. We see baptisms so much. The Spirit of God is so present in our midst, and it's been going on for years, and we are so honored that God's been doing that for so long. So the mission and vision and application of our church is very simple. We say we exist to live the Jesus life, and we get that from the fact that Jesus called people to not just believe in him, but to live like him. And living like Jesus looks like living the Jesus life. And as a church, we've broken that mission and vision into a 3 kind of pronged view of how do we really ask the question, how do you help people become so formed, so molded into the image of Christ Jesus? How do you do that in a way that changes every sphere of their lives? And in psychological research and leadership research and all these things, everybody always talks about how there's 3 specific things that always need to take place for anything to happen in all of our lives. We need to believe and know specific things, narratives, ideas, concepts. We have to intellectually engage. From there, we have to then do something with what we know. We have to take into action the narratives. And this is, if you've ever been in counseling, you not only have to acknowledge good or false narratives about what you believe, but you have to do something about that, whether you have PTSD, bipolar, depression, anxiety, or even just simply just needing counseling for your marriage. You have to have action to what you believe. Even if maybe what you believe is hard to believe, you have to have action to it. And then from action, you have to have community. There's no ability for any of us to look like Jesus if we do it in isolation. There's no ability for any of us to really change how to change in general without full-blown community. And that's really the plight of American Christianity, is we're all about knowing and doing, but we're not about becoming. And so at Lighthouse, we've said, no. The evidence is out there. The scriptures teach us this. The life of Jesus teaches this, where it is our job. The mission of the church has always been the same. The Great Commission: reach the lost, disciple the nations, transform the world. But how you go about that is the life of Jesus himself. Knowing what the Father taught him, and then he therefore taught us through the power of the Spirit of God. We want to know everything that Jesus taught. From our knowledge of the teachings of Jesus Christ, we then want to do all the things that Jesus did in every way. Miraculous beautiful, controversial, challenging practices of Jesus Christ to change who we are as people. And we want to do all of this in the context of people, life together. And so our mission, Great Commission, but our vision, live the Jesus life by knowing, doing, and becoming. And then there's application to that. That's how we have the ministries we have. That's why formation groups are so important to us. That's why deep, knowledgeable teachings of the scriptures on Sundays happen. It's why we are an action-based church. We are in our community. It's why we tell you that if you're alone, then you're not doing the Christian life right. You need to be with people. Everything flows from the Jesus life. Everything flows from acting like Jesus. Everything flows from the idea of, if I'm a disciple of Jesus, then I can do what the disciples of Jesus did in the Gospels and in the book of Acts, and I can live that life. And we believe that that is the essence of what we do as a church, whether we are gathered on Sunday or we are scattered, man. Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47 describes the church as one that has everything in common, sharing meals together, breaking bread together, entering the temple courts every day, worshiping, celebrating the good news of Jesus Christ. And not only did they have this radical depth to who they were, but they also had the Lord's favor was upon them. The people of the world actually had favor upon them. And it actually says in verse 47 in Acts chapter 2 that the Lord added to the number daily those who were being saved. So we are a church that believes that when we go deep in our knowledge, in our becoming, and in our doing, we actually then reach the world in the most effective way possible, which is the same way that Jesus reached the world, which is a subversive, formative, challenging, unbelievable lifestyle of Christianity that impacts every sphere. And so that's what we're all about. The application of that is simple. It means that we say no to a lot of things and we say yes to the things that matter most to our formational vision and mission. As a church, we have a specific structure. So this is something that's come up quite a bit for different people in our church. We are elder-led, which means that we have couples who lead our church. Elders, husbands and wives, serve together. And we have an elder team. And our elder team oversees the vision of our church. They also oversee the shepherding care of our church, and then that kind of trickles into our formational coaches. And if you're a part of a formation group, your formational host has a coach. But our elders make the executive level decisions with Pastor Miguel and I being at the head of the elder team. And we co-labor together as elders, and we lead the church. And from leading the church as elders, we then empower our staff, which is our paid positions at our church. We empower our staff. We empower the deacons and the leaders of our church that are chief servants of our church, like our coaches, like our ministry leads, our Sunday leads, different people in our community doing the life of our church, the ministry of our church. And that we also empower our members. And our members, which are not just attenders of the church, our members are people who are covenanted to Lighthouse Church, under the authority of the elders in a covenant relationship with each other, which you'll see later on in the document we actually discuss, where there's an elder covenant and then there's a members covenant to each other. And so what that looks like is that members have a say, they have a role, they have a vote on specific things, but they trust themselves, like the early church did, to the elders of the church. You had the early elders, then you had the early deacons, then you had the early group, the covenanted membership of the early church that followed Jesus. And so we model ourselves after that. And you can see examples of this in the book of Acts. At the beginning of the book of Acts, chapter 3 on, the church kind of was molding and shaping into what it looks like. You can see this in Ephesians chapter 4. You could see this, the importance of all of these different things in different scriptures. One of the last things we want to talk about in part 1 is not just who we are as far as where we came from, what our mission, vision, values, applications are, things like that in our leadership structure. But we also want to recognize that when you're a member, you have a huge part to play. That if you're considering being a member of Lighthouse Church, then there are roles that you have, ministries that we ask that you participate in, not just ask, but we require. Because this isn't a country club where you just come and get a towel and sit by the pool. This is the family. This is like a Thanksgiving meal. All of us have something to contribute. You have a gift that the Lord wants to use. You have multiple gifts that the Lord wants to use. And whether that's tongues, prophecy, healing, miracles, administration, preaching, teaching, caring for or whatever it is, we want you to use those gifts. And we believe, just like it says in Romans 4, it is a joyful opportunity to serve God and his people by using your gifts. Or in 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul talks about how that you are necessary and you're an important part of the body of Christ. We believe that when you're becoming a member of Lighthouse, you're not just learning about who we are, but you are more deeply diving into who we are, so that way an expression of who we are is an expression of you. And so we believe that you are gifted, you are called, that you have a purpose, and that our story, in a lot of ways, is an invitation for you to jump into that story. That you have a part to play, friend. And if you want to become a member of Lighthouse Church, it is not the story of Lighthouse. It's actually your story infecting the story of Lighthouse Church. And so part one, simply who are we? The overview of our story, going from 12 people to now we're in a warehouse in 5555 West Evans, to our vision, our mission, our leadership structure, the ministries of Lighthouse Church. And so you'll see at the end of this document that you can take notes on part one. But this is more of just an overview, just to help you understand a little bit more of who we are. And if you're watching this and you want to learn more about who we are, you are more than welcome to reach out to any of our pastors to hear a little bit more of our story. All of our staff can share a little bit more of how they came to fall in love with Lighthouse and why they're here, and our elders and who those people are. And so, don't be shy. We recognize that in the video format, you're missing out on some aspects of the personal involvement with getting to know a little bit more of the stories and asking questions. But nonetheless, you can still email us and ask away as much as you'd like. So the next video that you're going to be watching is all going to be about part two, what we believe, and get into some nitty gritty stuff there. But I hope that you guys are able to stick around, going from who we are to then what we believe. So we'll see you in part two.